Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Project Management 101, Develop a More Successful Team with Rocket, hosted by HRDQ-U and presented by Lou Russell. My name is Sarah, and I will moderate today's webinar. The webinar will last around 1 hour. If you have any questions, please type them into the question area on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll answer as many as we can during today's session. And on this next slide here, I'd like to talk about the foundation of today's webinar, which is based on Rocket, the project management game available at HRDQ Store. Rocket is a competitive team simulation emphasizing simple, fast, and flexible techniques for ensuring project success. You can learn more at www.hrdqstore.com. And I'm excited to introduce today's presenter and author of Rocket, Lou Russell. Lou is Director of Learning Services at Moser Consulting. As an executive consultant, speaker, and author, she channels her passion to create growth in companies by growing their people. Lou inspires greatness in leadership, projects, and teams. She is the author of popular books on leadership, teams, and project management. Lou blends her stories with practical ideas so you can solve complex problems. Encouraged by Lou's upbeat and practical style, you'll leave with new tools and renewed hope. You will be laughing, participating, and challenged. Most importantly to Lou, you will learn. Thanks for joining us today, Lou.
Thank you. So much fun. We've been just yapping and yapping.
And Lou, it looks like we need to jump back to the PowerPoint slide there.
Okay, sorry. Are we here?
There we go.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you coming. It's not every day that someone gets invited to a webinar that's going to build a rocket. So that's pretty cool. I don't know I'm not sure really when we started with this little project, but we do. I was telling her that we have, Sarah, a lot of still popsicle sticks in here of multiple colors. So if you need anything, let me know. So what I would like to do is go over basic project management. And then what I want to do is to show you some things you can do with this rocket game that are pretty fun. And so that's sort of my agenda. And you can let me know if that's not your agenda. I would be happy to hear that as well. So here I have define the roles of the project. These are our objectives. This is one of my project management books too. And I want to tell you about my, I don't know, I think I have 4 or 5 project management books. This is the youngest one. And I have tons of them and I don't use them. So I want to give you a hint. A hint is that if you go to Amazon, they'll sell these for like $3 or $5 or whatever. So just keep that up. Keep thinking about that. So here are our objectives. We're going to define the roles of the project manager, the project sponsor, and other key project staff. So we need to know who's who. If you're doing a project and you haven't figured that out, it gets really bad and it tends to never end. I also want to show you how to build a stakeholder communication plan and a governance plan. It's basically just the way you build the fences to get everything where it's supposed to be. We'll document business and project objectives. You may think those are the same thing. They are not. We're going to document risks and constraints, the scope of the project, and then I'm going to build a project charter for you to see, just working back from the dates. And a lot of times we go forward when we're working on projects. It's usually better to work back. And then choose the appropriate tasks and activities that you need for your project. And then we always, learning and development people should always go back and do a post-project review for whatever they're doing, right? And if they do that, if we all do that, we have much better confidence. So let's get going on that. So together we're going to talk about what is project management, and this is kind of a weird image, I think, but it's actually two roads, right? And they're going totally different ways. And so that's what usually happens when people build projects together. They go different ways, the signs go different ways, and nobody's talking to anyone and no one's communicating. So communication is so important to project management. It's just so important. So I make up little like mantras. So this mantra is dare to properly manage resources. dare to properly manage resources. You can see it in that green box. And what that stands for is if I take the four DPMR out of that, I can call it define, plan, manage, and review. Okay, and I'll show you that in a minute. And that's what this project management is about. Simple project management, 4 phases, not real crazy, planning all the time to communicate and being with people. So as you can see up on the dots there, we have defined the project, just like I just told you, and projects are going to create all kinds of change. So never think that, okay, that one's done. No, that projects do end. I mean, by definition, a project is supposed to end, but still, there's so much change all the time, and I think you all know that. So we define, we plan, we manage, and review in those green letters. And then, of course, we learn how to play your very own rocket game. Here's a rocket. This isn't the one we're going to use, though. So after attending this webinar, you will apply ways to help your teams work on projects more effectively. And I think as you see the build, how the build goes, this is going to be towards the end of the presentation today. But you're going to see that there's ways you can get your teams to really look at how do we work better together? Because that's what happens when you're trying to build things with other people. You're also going to learn a little bit more about project management, and I'll be sharing some very simple project management steps with you. And that's another thing that really helps you if you build a rocket. And then we're going to convince the learners to look for quality, not just speed. We're in a place right now where we're trying to get everything done all at the same time, right? And we have to have a little bit more due diligence. We have to maybe think a little bit more about how much we really need to be going around screaming and yelling. So we understand, as I said before, there are 4 phases: define, plan, manage, and review. And the most important thing, I think, is to keep the project simple. Don't add on, add on, add on. You can always add on once you have a prototype and then do it that way. But try really hard to do bare bones, keep it simple. That's the best way to get a project built and for it to stay the way it is, right? Stay what you were hoping it would be. Okay. So I want you to think a couple, and I'm going to ask you, I think you can put maybe a little answer in. I think we were talking about that. I want you to describe the problems you have experienced on one of your projects. So first of all, think about a project that you've been on, preferably one that you think is kind of irritating. Okay. All right. And so think about that project. And if you can type it in the chat or whatever you're using there, what are some things you might say is what are the emotions that you come to mind of a project like this, right? Problems experienced on a project. What emotion happens to you?
So you can type your response into the questions box. We have frustration.
That's the favorite one. That is definitely the favorite one.
Are we finished yet? Barbara said.
I like that.
Francie said annoyed.
Mm-hmm. One egg is annoyed in this picture, I think.
Aggravated. You can't win. Overwhelmed. Stakeholders are not aligning with the requirements, which is frustrating. Irritated, said Jean.
That's a real good list. So for everybody else, as you've been listening to this, rank the intensity of how bad is it? 1 being not bad at all, 10 being really bad. So when you think about your projects, 1 to 10, what would that number be for you right now?
Oh, we have some 7s and 5s. We have a few 10s in there as well. More 7s, definitely. It looks like we're getting anywhere from 5 to 10, but definitely leaning more towards between that 7 through 10.
Okay, so clearly we're not getting 1s and 2s, right? Oh, it's not that bad. Yes, it is. Okay, and now let's think about a project that you had that had a positive emotion. Just give us some information about how did that happen? What happens when there's a positive project, a project emotion?
And again, you can type your response into that questions area. Jean said relief and surprise.
Nice. That's a great one.
We
I
have
did it.
satisfaction, deliverables are on time. Barbara said looking forward to the next one. Sean said happy customers. Helen said uplifted. Francie said satisfied and accomplished.
Beautiful. And that's where we want to go, right? This is where we want to go, right here. We want to have that kind of outlook. What was the emotion for that? As you talked about that 1 to 10, what was the number for that? 10 being good, the intensity of that emotion.
Oh, we have 8s, we have 9s, we have 10s.
Nice. There you go. That's what I was hoping for. Fabulous. So when we stop and think about projects as we're as we're beginning them, I think it's important to do something like this. Like look at your project. How do you feel emotionally about it? What's kind of happening around you? 1 to 10, how good is it? And the same thing with the experience of project that had success. You know, it's also important to go back when we've done something that went well so that we remember how to do it again, right? Not just stop and that's the end of that. So thank you for playing that game with me. I appreciate it. So let's get just the terminology of project management. Let's get that kind of, we'll walk across that. And I like to, you can see this little clip art that I stole from somebody. And I like the way they put this. There's an idea, we do something, we're doing the something, and we're done. And those essentially are the 4 steps of project management, right? Define, plan, manage, and redo. There's an idea, do something, do it right, finish it right, and then done. Perfect. So we call it on the left side, you can see the words define, plan, manage, review. Define in the project means you're identifying the very first thing, that light bulb, the very first thing is you're identifying the high level need. What's the big picture? If you start with the little picture, you're never going to get a project done. So this project scope we're talking about right now, we want to have a way of having a sketch of the whole thing and then sort of coloring it back in with the crayons, right? That's what the deal is. So define the project, plan the project then, which is laying out the work, manage the project, which is finishing it up, and then review. And I'm always going to be, and I don't always do it, but I'm always harping on when some of these things are over, don't run away screaming. Do a post-project review. Learn from yourself how you can do better the next time. And I don't think we take a lot of time for that usually, and it doesn't take very long. If you can do it with other people, it's even better, I think. Okay, so what is the difference between a project and a process? So a project, and these words are funny because they all sound the same, sort of like they're cousins. So we need to be able to keep them kind of straight up. So a project, it's a project if it has a beginning and an end. If it keeps going forever, it's not a project, more to come, right? The other thing usually that happens with the project, usually other people are involved. Now, it may be that you're doing most of the work because you're the project manager, let's say, but you're still going to ask people questions. People are really coming in and out. And the way we do projects now, especially we were just talking about how people are remote, people are working in all kinds of weird places all the time. So we know that there has to be a way that's beginning and an end, but I also need to be able to communicate with other people a lot because things are changing and we know about that right now in our lives. It still makes finding the end difficult. That is always hard. Have I really got everything I wanted? How do I stop? Stopping a project is really, it's just like, making an arts form or something. You have to keep adding one other thing to it, right? Something like that. So definition of a project, beginning and an end. Other people are involved usually, and it might be hard to stop. Okay, then look at this happy girl with payroll. If you have a process, the process is not the same. The process doesn't end. Now, this is going to get kind of muddy on your brain. The reason I say a process doesn't end is a process goes for a long time. And we say forever. I don't, forever, of course, is not true, right? So, for example, payroll. Do we want payroll to end? No. We want that payroll cycle to continue, right? So the difference is project has a beginning and an end, process does not. And if you mix those up, it's going to be really hard to finish your projects. Okay, let me get over here. So let's do a little, I do cleaning the head trash here. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to jot down yourself, you don't have to tell anybody, 5 things, and it doesn't have to be 5, it can be less, on your to-do list, you know, that you're supposed to be working on right now, not being on a webinar. List 5 things that you have on your to-do list. Just write down 5 things you got to get done today or tomorrow or hopefully or whenever. Okay, so just jot them down. Okay. We'll talk about the game later. Hold on. I'm bouncing it around, so don't worry. Okay, can you give us some ideas about some of the things that were on your to-do list? And I want you to think about them. Were they processes or projects? So see what you're getting, Sarah. What are some things they're supposed to be working on?
We have reviewing your agenda, creating a detailed list, a task list for a project.
Perfect.
Ron said a mix of both.
A
Sean
mix of
said
both.
video. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Lou.
No, sorry, I did it.
Sean said video editing project.
Nice.
Veronica said projects. Ron said process and projects.
Very
Donald
good.
said a product goal.
Nice.
Sean said mainly processes. We also have employee reviews, scheduling interviews, reports.
So employee
Reviewing.
reviews could be a process, right? Because like, for example, we're doing our PDPs this week. So, right, that's going to go again next year. So really that's a process. So it's kind of tricky to kind of remember that process and project are doing 2 different things. Project is begin and done. Process is sustaining some activity usually, right? And until you don't want to do it anymore. So well done. Good job. So let's talk about a little bit about the project management game. This is the kit you would get as you are going to come and play this game. And I'm just teasing you right now. I'm going to show you more about that later. So here are some other roles that we didn't talk about. There's a role called a project sponsor. And a project sponsor plans, organizes, and controls the project. I didn't say works on the project. This is so, and again, this is, you know, maybe you are doing that. It's fine. You could do it any way you want. But basically, the project sponsor is above the sponsor, and they are responsible for money, like that they get the money they need to do whatever the project is. They tend to be an upper level management person, but a project sponsor isn't in the weeds in general. You all know people that are executives that have been in the weeds with you. That it does happen, of course, but by definition, the project sponsor plans, organizes, and controls. Okay, so that's different than, oops, sorry, the project manager. The project manager, I like to call the project manager the steward of the project, taking care of the project. And that person plans, organizes, and manages the project. That's different than the sponsor who's overhead, right? This is their actually, it's time to do this part of the project, this part of the project, right? Plans, organizes, and manages the project. So that's the project manager. So project sponsor, think of it as higher, right? More senior, maybe. I suppose it doesn't have to be that way. And then the project manager is a steward, meaning taking care of building the project. Then we also, of course, usually have project team members, and they create, project activities or project deliverables. So these are additional roles that might happen. I can't tell you how many there'll be. It would depend on the size of the project and what you were trying to do. So you can kind of see, let me go back, kind of see the 3 steps, right? We have the sponsor, project sponsor, plan, organizes, and controls. Project manager plan, organizes, and manages. They're in the weeds with everybody that's working. And then project team members. So that's the simplicity of the roles of project management. Now, I want to share with you this really weird picture that I've had for a very long time. Bad news early is good news is something I say quite frequently. Tell me about it before it's too late. That's basically the idea. So what do you see on this picture that seems a little weird to you? That seems odd. The whole thing's kind of weird, actually. We'll wait for some thoughts on this.
And you can, again, chat your response in the questions box. Oh, we have some responses coming in. We have driving on the wrong side.
Whichever side that is, yeah, perfect.
Tracy said there's a pole in the middle of the road.
That's kind of duh. Yeah, exactly.
We have Aisha saying there's a Y in the road.
Something, yeah.
Helen said the sign that's in the road.
Yes.
We have Veronica that said there's a log in the middle of the road.
Maybe. It's hard to see what that is. It could just be, I don't know what that could be.
We have a
Looks,
lot of comments coming through about the pole and the
yeah.
post as well.
Yeah. And it looks like they did it on purpose because you can kind of see where the edge was, right? They put like the bigger, I don't know what they were doing. Here, what about this? What about all the way to the right corner? What do you see in there? Bottom right corner.
A
Come on.
car. We have
A
people
car,
saying
right. So in all the stupidity, think about projects, right? This is how projects go. You focus on things like, oh, we're gonna try to add some more asphalt right here. We're gonna put this sign up. This is actually a guy if you get really close to it. Put some mulch over here. And at the whole point, they're not seeing it all. Wait, there's a car on the road, right? It's not off the road, it's on the road. So that's what happens in project management. Project management, when people get busy, they stop, they focus on like one thing or two things, and they don't continue to look at the big picture. And I've always loved this picture just because it's so dumb looking. Like who would have ever done this? So thank you for sharing that with me. Now, I'm going to show you another picture that you've probably heard of from Japan. And it's sort of the other side. This is about how amazing you can make a project. So this is downtown Japan. And you can see that they've basically let people drive through this tower onto the highway. And you think about how much time that took, or how creative they had to be, or how dangerous they had to make sure it was. Because I think in Japan, it's called the Gateway, I believe is what it's called. And so it's just one of those things where you're like, wow, this was a lot of work and it took a lot of thought. And what do you think would be the most important reason that this was able to happen? Put that in the chat window.
we have Miriam who said clear thinking and communication.
Nice.
Helen said collaboration. Anik said innovation. Ron said upfront planning and communication throughout.
That's really a good one too. Yeah, good one.
Jean said creativity. Omar said planning. Veronica said someone had a lot of money invested in the project and it was going to happen.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Barbara said the project sponsor stayed out of the way. Sean said necessity, and a couple more here. We have innovation and courage.
Excellent. That's great. So I want you to, this is called the Gate Tower building in Japan. And remember, there's obviously a lot of buildings here. There also are some earthquakes, of course. So, just kind of think about it, how amazing. It's still there. It's good. So far, so good, right? And now, don't put any jinxes on us, but I think if people get together and they collaborate and they talk together and they try to keep it simple as much as they can. You have a chance at it. So if you have the intention and the time and the communication, you can do it. If you don't have the discipline, don't try to work on projects because it's just going to make a big mess. So, what is difficult for you? I'd like to hear from you. What's the hardest thing for you on your projects? What's the thing that's most difficult?
Let's see, we have here Donald said alignment.
Mm.
Ron said soliciting, quote, good requirements. Miriam said beginning the project. Veronica said communication. Moses said working on the same targets. Omar said cooperation. Jean said patience when I am not the driver.
Oh, nice.
We also have timeline, the time that's involved, and getting all the details necessary for success.
Those are great. Those are great. I hope you have wrote down some of those because we feel like we're doing that all ourselves, right? It's only me that has this problem, right? But no, the bigger the project, the bigger risk there is and the more work there is. And basically communication, that you have to try. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to try. Don't jump into it. Try to make it a giant if you don't have to. Try to keep it as sleek as you possibly can, and that's the best way to work with a group of people that are doing something fabulous like this. It's really pretty common, right these days for multiple people to work together. Um, we are now. So here, let me talk about this. Sometimes people get mixed up about paperwork too. So project management is not filling out forms. Filling out forms isn't the end of the story. It's a way, perhaps, to get a project built, but it is not a thing that is the end of the story. It's not an excuse to ignore the organization's perspective. So somebody might come up to you and say, "Oh, your project, yeah, no, we don't think that's a good one," or something. If you're always, if you know right ahead that it's going to be late, poor quality, or over budget project delivery, you got to nail that down right then. The minute you have any guess that this is going to happen, don't wait. Don't wait. And then, it's not a substitute. Project management is not a substitute for a brain. It's just a way of looking at things so that we can actually get work done. With multiple people and different roles working together, it's very, very common now, but it can also get really heavy and confusing and really hard, sort of, I would say, to untie. And as you untie from each other, which is bad, right? You don't have the discipline anymore. So kind of think about that as you're working with projects and notice when things might be unraveling a bit. I also think that projects are flash mobs. That's another thing that I like to talk about. Has anybody been in a flash mob? I just would like to know. That used to be a big thing, but I haven't heard about it in a long time. Has anyone been in one? Let us know.
We have some people saying they have not been in one.
Okay, no one's so now
Nobody's
go
saying
home and get a flash mob going somewhere. But what's interesting when you actually, I can remember it's been a while now, but I was in New York a couple times where they'd have these random flash mobs going on, similar to this. And a flash mob has very small but very specific rules, and everybody knows what their domain is, where they're supposed to move and where they're not supposed to move. They know that. The other really cool thing about a flash mob, we always say the real flash mob, whatever that is when people show up, they just show up out of like they don't all stand around and go, "Come on, it's almost time for us to do our flash mob." they see kind of like come out of the corn in a way, right? And they all come out on their own and it merges right into a thing and they have music or whatever they're doing, a dance or whatever. And then the other thing they do is they disappear. So one of the things that's very important about a flash mob is you enter quickly, you do your thing, you disappear. It was never there. And if you've ever been in one or ever seen one, and I maybe they aren't even being, no one does it anymore, perhaps, but when I did see a couple of them in New York, it was interesting how choreographed it was. It was just unbelievable. They were just regular people, but the rules were very short. Here's the rule: go in, dance, go out. Nothing extra. So we want to do that with project management too. We want to make sure to make everything as easy as we can, as simple as it can. No, not overcomplicate. You can always, right, build more on it later once you've deployed. So I think that's super important as well. So here's the plan, that the steps to great projects that I wanted to go over with you just to show you as a definition. You can see up at the top there's a white arrow, the PMBOK. The PMBOK is the project management body of knowledge. It's all the rules and all the things that the Project Management Institute takes care of to make projects more effective. You can see I have my Dare to Properly Manage Resources up there as well. You can also see the arrow that says PMBOK has initiate, plan, monitor, and close. Initiate, plan, monitor, and close. So when I did my project management process, I just basically changed the words a little bit because I wanted it to be very basic, right? I wanted to keep it very, very basic. So my arrows, you can see, are define, plan, manage, and review. We define the project. We figure out all the things we need to do to get ready. We plan the project. We lay it out, what order it needs to be, the people, etc. We manage the project, which is basically the build. And then again, as I've been harping on, we review the project. So we have, you can see we have, I'm going to go over just the 7 steps of this very first one. So you see that as an example. We also have a template that you're gonna get. I think Shauna has sent it out, so we'll figure out how to get it to you. And this is basically just a checklist of how those very same things we had on the last page, these 7 are in this template. And so before you get going, and these are very hard to read, so I'm gonna just show you a little bit of it. I'll read it to you aloud. So the first thing we have up on the left-hand corner is we have the business objectives. With business objectives, it's either increase revenue or avoid costs. That's all you got. There's no other choice. Your project is either gonna make money or pay money, increase revenue or avoid cost, right? And so this little thing would say, and it's absolutely very hard to do it because you want to have both, right? And so I might increase revenue by doing this, and that's what number 1 is. Number 2 is a scope diagram I'm going to show you in a minute. Number 3 are the project objectives. That was the number 3 on that list. Number 4 is quick and dirty risk, kind of balancing where my risks are and where they are not. What are our constraints is number 6, because 5 was over there. What are holding me back? Constraints. And people get mixed up about risk and constraints. Risk is something that might happen, but it hasn't yet. Constraint is happened. So risk, you can do something about it. Constraint, you're stuck. And people still try to mess it all up and they get even worse. So it's terrible. We have communication strategy in number 7. We have, again, another way of looking at risk factor in number 5. And then at the end, governance strategy and change request, etc. So you will get a copy of that. You can see Shauna Mosier at mosierit.com up on the top there. If you haven't gotten it, let us know and we will send you this document because it's super fun for a brand new project, high level, to sketch out where you are right then. So it's called the Project Charter Template.
And Lou, participants can also access that handout on their control panel today. That's under the handouts dropdown.
Excellent. Even better. Even better. So whatever project you're working on, right, you have to worry about it. Is it increase revenue or avoid cost? So if you're doing a project for the United Way Day of Caring, let's say, and I'm sure all of you know about the United Way, etc., and there's a project, do you think it would avoid cost of retaining employees by creating an opportunity for teamwork and service? The United Way Day of Caring project will avoid cost of retaining employees by creating an opportunity for teamwork and service. Why didn't I do increased revenue? Does anyone think it should have been increased revenue? Notice how I picked avoid costs. There's only two. So you can't argue with it because it's true, right? What would be a project that would increase revenue? Give us some ideas about that. What would the project be if it were not this project, some other project? What's a project that would increase revenue?
You can type your response into the questions area. And while we're waiting for some responses to come in, Lou, we actually had a comment come through that Jocelyn had managed project managed a flash mob once.
Oh, awesome. That's excellent.
And we have some responses coming in. We have new product introduction, network
Perfect.
upgrades, retaining employees would avoid cost, a service for a customer would generate revenue.
Excellent.
Designing
Those
a
are
new project, smart technology.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Yep. So there's, and you know, it's interesting. It's always, you want to have three because there's always another one that sort of seems like, well, but it's really the same thing as these two. I mean, so always when you get started in the very beginning of your project, just ask yourself this question. The project will, that you're going to do, increase revenue or avoid cost by this sentence that makes sense. Okay. So start here. So that's the very first thing you will do. Start here for the project charter. I like to sketch out a project charter, and this one is a project scope diagram also. I also call it orbiting the giant hairball because it looks like it has a giant hairball in the middle. So if you think about it, and this isn't like physically true, but sort of like project true, the project manager is sort of in the project as far as everybody around the project sponsor, I mean the project manager, they're the leader sort of person to make sure that the work's going well, right? So there you can see that project manager is right in the middle of the project, right in the center there. And it looks like the giant hairball. Then we have other people that are coming in and out, right, for different reasons, generally not all the time there. The project sponsor may be, remember, this is the high level person. The project sponsor could be there a lot, but probably still has with that kind of reputation, has a lot of other projects going on as well, or other kinds of things they have to do. So I usually put, if I'm drawing these, I usually put the project sponsor on the top because when the project sponsor looks at this document, they certainly do like to have the project sponsor on the top. That's the only reason I put it there. We also might have some experts over to the side, the SMEs on the left-hand side, right, coming and going. We have functional leaders that are coming and going. Sometimes we need them, sometimes we don't. We have customers that are coming and going, and we have financial or finance that's also getting involved. So this is just a real simple diagram with boxes and, you know, a hairball basically. And all I do with this is just to try to, as I start a new project, get my head around how hard is this going to be overall? Because you always start with, oh, it's going to be fine. But the more of these boxes you have, it's not going to be fine, right? So you really have to figure out with this really easy sketch. It's one of my favorite things. So let me show you one that's drawn that's really a very nice one. It's a little bit similar, but you can see this is a United Way Day of Caring again. It's called the Volunteer Day Project. And we have a sponsor that's paying some money and getting status back. We have a corporate communications here, has a plan for how this is going to work, and they need budget and need in there. We have employees, volunteer day projects. Some can work, some are in training, some are scheduling, etc. And we have catering, right? And so it's all, notice again, it's all coming out and back from the middle, right? There's nobody sneaking around the side. It's always in and out from the project. So we had food and budget. Now there's one on here that's wrong. So charity's missing one. The charity's right up there that says volunteers. What do I need to do to fix that? What's wrong with that?
And again, you can type your response into the question area. Sean said finance.
Good. What's wrong with finance? It's not there. Maybe that's it.
Nana said you should change the direction of the arrow.
Which one?
Volunteers.
Okay, excellent. So you can see this as a story, right? So let's say we were at the Volunteer Day project, and that was a great answer, by the way. And some volunteers have been sent off to the charities to work on things. And you can see I'm kind of pushing that through with my little arrow. I don't know that you can see it. Um, but then what happens? Like we sent volunteers to the charities and nothing else happened. We have to have something that comes back, right? All the other ones have something that comes back. So if you look at catering on the bottom, we sent food out and they got money back for the food. See how it's always out and in, out and in. And you can have multiple arrows, but there always has to be one in and one out. So for the charities one to be fixed, it needs another arrow going from charities to Volunteer Day project. Everything goes back to the middle. And this really helps us see the complexity of the work that we're about to do and the project that we're doing. And it's sort of eyes wide open again. Wow, we need all these people. This is much bigger than what I thought it was. Super fun. I usually do this with Post-its actually. Um, and like I said, there's one other thing that you cannot do, and I didn't really show you one of these, but you can't have arrowheads on both sides because how can you go someplace if you're going both directions at the same time? So you always have an arrow at the end of every one of these lines that you're drawing to keep it working correctly. You can sometimes, so this is fixed now, okay? This is a fixed one. So you can see volunteers went to the charities and their needs. Actually, you do it that first. The charities asked for volunteer day, right? They had needs and the volunteers went to charities. So that's all now basically kosher. Everything's right. Everything comes in and out. There's nothing hanging anywhere all by itself. Um, you cannot, and you can look over on the right-hand side where it says corporate communication. You can see that red line, red arrow with the X in the middle. You aren't allowed to do that. You can't go two heads sneaking around the outside. So the reason that's there is don't do that. It's always going from the middle to a person, some entity. Okay. But over here, some of the times I do this, and you may not go all the way to the left under charities. You can see those dotted lines. The dotted lines, I use those to show they're not really part of the actual push and pull of the project, but those two groups are spending a lot of time together. So that's why it's a dotted line. It's just like, I don't want it outside, but I do want to keep in mind that these people are working together very, very well, and we want to, make sure we're keeping an eye on them. So this is a scope diagram. I would love if you have a chance to try one, a project that you're doing, and draw it this way, and you send it to me. And my email's on the deck as well. I'd love to see it because it is so much fun. I love doing these. You can tell, I'm sure. So let's get going. I want to go to a little bit more about risk and constraints. We've talked about this a little bit, but I'm putting some more words into it. If there's a risk that someone didn't show up to come to work or something like that, anything that would negatively impact the business that might happen, or sponsor changes is a big risk, right? Or your boss changes is a big risk. What can you do when that happens? Well, you have to either, if you can get ahead of it with risk, you can prevent it, perhaps. And if you cannot get ahead of it, you just probably have to react to it and figure out how you're going to make that work. Now on the other side, and we just talked about this, on the other side with constraint, a constraint is it's going to happen. it has happened. Even think of it as it has happened. A change, a challenge that will happen. Like fixed budget, fixed date, we changed our resources. What do? You accept it. You work within the limits of what you have. So a lot of people, when they look at a constraint and it's not going their way, they start acting like little jerks. Like, well, no, we're changing it. We don't change a constraint. A constraint is stuck. That's what it is. It just stays the way it is. So using those two words, think about if you hear people use the word risk and constraint, how they mess that up. They call it totally different things. Risk, you can do something about it. Constraint, you have to just go with the flow and take it on the chin, basically. So finally, I want to let you know we're heading toward the end. It's always a draft. So whenever you're doing a project charter template or a project charter itself, whenever you're using it, it's always a draft. Never think, oh, it's done, and I'm never going to look at it again. That's crazy. There's always something else you could be doing. Keep it simple. We have to balance that as well. As the project progresses and new data emerges, then we must change the plan. In projects, and you probably will have never heard anyone say this before, but in projects, things will change. It's not magical. We can't lock it down. Things will change. So the mindset of watch for change is a good mindset. It's better than someone saying, I'm not going to let anything change. That's more going to be more destroying. And these are some of the quotes about that. Changes to the plan are never failures, just emerging realities. And that happens to us all the time. And then those who created the plan did not fail. They created what they could with what they knew right then. I love that quote. I think that's really good. So as you go through this deck again and you see the slides, and I'm happy to get those to you if you would like to look at them. The project charter, once you get used to it, takes less than 45 minutes, really. It's a sketch. Building the whole project, we just did define, right? We did the define side. So define, plan, manage, and review, there's a lot of work that's going to go on there. But the project charter likely is going to be 45 minutes or less because it's a sketch. And so don't get, too hung up. And you can change it anytime you want, which is awesome. So here's a couple of other things now to end. I want to talk about the Rocket game. And I want to share with you some ways that we've used the Rocket game over, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I would say at this point. We used it a lot with our team building. You can see as the team building there over here. We would actually break into teams of 3 and then race to build the perfect rocket. Now, the cool thing about this activity is that what people really do is when they are doing this bit, because we said race, right? So now we're very competitive. We said race. What people almost always do is they build the rocket without looking carefully at the blueprint. So the facilitator comes back, which is what makes it so fun, and says, fix it. That's not right. And doesn't tell them where it is or anything. So at that point, everyone in the room is like messed up. It's great. It's totally great. And then you can, with team building, you could say, all right, 3 people get together. Now we haven't had, it's kind of interesting when you think about it because we haven't had a lot of time where we get to stand together with people, right? That's not a thing, but it's coming along and we're getting there. So that's the team building, and you're still using the same kit. Really, I'm not putting anything different in there than I would have. Really nice for new hires. If you have new hires that you've hired like 3 people or 4 people, or maybe you've only hired 1 person, but you get 5 people or 6 people to play the rocket game with them, and then they get to know each other better. And I think that's good for hiring as well. Same thing with project managers. Project managers have all this stuff in their head about all these important things they have to do, and how difficult it is, and how hard it is, and the PMBOK and all this stuff. And so what I what I what I like on this one, I actually did this in a boot camp that I taught a couple of years ago, and I would say, all right, have each person race to build the rocket as quickly and accurately as possible. And it's just like the team building one. They had terrible, they didn't look at the rules at all. Everything, they had to redo it about 5 times. And they were so frustrated. So they're still trying to beat each other, but they're just getting worse and worse. So, there's a lot of debriefing you can do with that stuff. So over on the right side, tips for implementation. Always pass out the supplies, including the laminated picture of the rocket. If you don't have the laminated picture, you're in big trouble. It won't work. So you get the supplies, you get the popsicle sticks in multiple colors. You get screws and nuts that are very small, which makes some people crazy. That makes them mad sometimes, which is fun. And of course, the blueprint is there. You can kind of see it. And then have a leader who knows, if you're debriefing, have a leader who knows the usual mistakes that are made. And the usual mistakes are ignoring the rules. Basically, they just pull everything together and never pay any attention. You can also start doing fun things, like you could say, we're only going to do, like, this group has yellow, this group has green. You can do stuff like that too, and have different groups based on the color of the sticks. Um, the biggest thing that happens to us in our boot camps is people build too fast, and they don't take the time to really look at the criteria in a very, very deeper way. And it always cracks me up when they do that, especially when in back in the day when we were doing this in a, all together in a big room with a bunch of people. I think one time we did it with, gosh, I think we had nine. I think we had 9 groups or something like that. You're just walking around going, nope, you missed it. Nope, you missed it. It was great. So, and don't forget, you're going to get that fillable project charter also. That's coming your way. Um, you've got that ready to roll. And so I would like you to leave thinking about projects by their very nature. Projects change. That's the whole point. We get all kind of crazy, and we get locked down on, this is our solution. This is what we're going to do. That's what projects do. You need to be a little bit flexible, because they are going to change much, much more than you think they are. And if we just think about what we've gone through in the last 3 or 4 years, so have we, right? Everything has changed. Sarah and I were just talking about that, how different things are. So here's some warnings. Never do this. Seek first to blame. That's really stupid. Saying things like to yourself, I'm busy, so I must be making progress. Sure, we can do that without seeing anything about what it is you're building. Oh yeah, I can do that in just a minute. How many times have you said that and it ate you alive? And then, oh yeah, all projects are the same. All works are the same. None of them are the same. They're all different because they're being managed by people who are all different. So we have to be really, really deeply looking at what we're doing, or the stuff just slides away. But what's a good way of doing it? Well, seek first to collaborate. Try to get with other people. Talk to people. Be with people, even if it's on Zoom, wherever, right? Don't blame. Forget about blame. That takes everyone's energy away. Collaborate. I'm busy on the things that are making a return. And most of us work in businesses that are making a return. So we want to make sure that we're not working on the fun stuff or whatever. It's not about what we're doing. Our job is to make this return. Um, we've also done this with some kindergarten kids and some high school kids back in the day. Of course, we that's different then. That's not for a price. um, and then I like to say, a lot of times people will say, "Oh yeah, I can fix that. It'll just take a minute." It's better to say that will just take some planning. Let's look at it before we start again. And then, all working people are not the same. They're all unique. We are all unique. We all look at things differently. So we have to really work hard to communicate. So here's the game. It's very fun. Have fun with this. And now, you can get 6 feet away. So you could each have your own little kit. It'd be great. It'd be fabulous. Fun to do. So thank you very much. I appreciate you spending your time with me today. I have some, as I was talking to you, I have some project management books. If you're interested, I would go to Amazon first, because It is kind of funny to see these books. But if you want to have, if you want any of these books you're trying to find, we have them here as well. So let me know. We get a learning flash. We have a newsletter every month for tips and tools, not just on project management, on a lot of things. So if you're interested in signing up for that, we would be happy to do that as well. You can see my name down there, lou.russell@moserit.com. And if you have any questions about anything about our other workshops, webinars, our e-learning, and we also have some virtual alumni communities that have been playing with the Rocket for a long time as well, which is very fun. So at this point, I'm done. Does anyone have any questions you would like to share?
Great. So thanks so much, Lou. We do have a few minutes for questions here. If you have them, drop them in the questions box and we'll get through as many as we can today. And we did have a question come through from Sean, and Sean said, if things change as a project progresses and it hasn't been documented in the charter, would that be considered outside of the project scope?
Say that one more time. I thought you were going a different way.
If things change as the project progresses and it hasn't been documented in the charter, would that be considered outside of the project scope?
Well, I don't think it should be outside the project scope, but it might have been if there it should all like the what we went through today, it should all those steps should be going together. You can't just take out one of those steps and say, oh, we're not going to do that. Yeah, you are. You're doing all that stuff. So it's important for them. That's what's so nice about the simple project management that you have, in Define, you have the 7 things that you have or the 10 things that you have to do. And that's also true for Define, Plan, Manage, and Review, which is a little bit deeper work and less change, though, I think. So yeah, I'd say you got to keep your whole team together, keep your projects together. Be really careful to bound them how they should be.
Great. And then we had this isn't a question, but this is a comment from Chloe that said, I'm looking to get into project management from HR, and this has been a great 101 course.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice.
And then we have another question here from Alex, and Alex says, how many project sponsors should you have on a project?
You're just trying to kill me. Okay. um, Technically, a project sponsor is at the top. That's the pinnacle, right? And so there's one. And then there's project managers and all these other people, right, that we were talking about. If we were, in my opinion, and of course, there's times that this happens and it doesn't happen, but if I have a project sponsor and then you have a project sponsor for your project, they're 2 different projects, right? So splitting them up is not like we're making something bigger. It's just they're 2 totally different things. So I guess I would stick with that hierarchy. The project sponsors, money guy, money woman, and then going down that hierarchy. And if we need other work, we put up another project.
And we have time for one more question today, and that comes from Shannon. And Shannon said, how do you transition a project built to a process used?
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that's tricky because you really still gonna, I think those are gonna be parallel also. So you're gonna have the parallel side, which is the build, which is very easy and you know when it ends. But then you'll have this other side. I assume you're working inside a process with a project, right? And this process is just spinning, like, building whatever it is they're building all the time, waterfall all the time, round and round and round. So I think I still feel like it would probably be easier to deal with if you could differentiate between those two, the build and the go forever, the process.
Okay, great. And that here does bring us to the top of the hour and the end of our webinar today. Thank you so much for your time today, Lou.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a really fun, great session. And if you would like to learn more on topics like today, HRDQ memberships offer over 200 human resource webinars to trainers, consultants, and coaches, keeping you in the know with industry trends, as well as workforce virtual seminars for instructor-led classes on key training topics for your employees. Whether you are a professional learner or a learning professional, we've got your training needs covered. You can learn more at www.hrdq.com/memberships. And thank you all for participating in today's webinar. Happy training.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.